Hi, I'm Scott Willison, owner of the Confluence Fly Shop in Bellingham, Washington. It is December now. We've got some winter steelhead starting to show up, and I'm going to tie a stinger style spey fly we call the Leadbelly Spey. So I'm starting with a 32 millimeter OPST steelhead shank in the vise. And I've got a 5/32 inch gold tungsten bead already centered on that thing. I'm going to start my thread here to the rear of the bead. And for this part of the bead, it doesn't really matter what thread you use. I just prefer to use a lighter color so it doesn't show through the body too much. All right. And then I have a size 3 OPST stinger hook or OPST swing hook threaded on 30-pound Berkeley fire line here. You could also use intruder wire for this, which I often do. I'm going to measure that, get it about 1.5 inches or so behind everything. Behind that bead, behind that hook. And then we will lash that down securely along the shank. Then I'm going to fold the ends of that fire line back. This is a really important step for securing that trailing hook. This way it doesn't pull out on you, and then we'll just trim those ends there. Next, I've got some flat pearl diamond braid that we're going to use for the back portion of the body. We'll trim off a length of that. We're going to tie that in up toward the bead, and then wrap that all the way back to the end of our shank. We'll then wind that forward in nice tight wraps. Tie that off and trim it. Now at this point I am going to create a dubbing loop . And then we'll put our dubbing loop tool in while we get some materials ready here. I'm going to put several things in this rear dubbing loop today. I'm going to start with a little bit of UV pink ice dub. I've got some pearl ripple ice fiber we'll put in there. A little bit of pink UV predator wrap. And we'll even throw some barred pink Flashabou in there as well today. I'm going to start by just setting up a little, pretty thin amount. You can see that's not much dubbing there. I'm going to lay that out on the table. And then we'll cut a little bit of UV predator wrap here. I don't want these ends perfectly aligned, so I'm just going to pull on a few of them and kind of spread that out. I'll lay that perpendicular to the dubbing. Going to do the same thing with the ripple ice fiber. Lay that perpendicular to the dubbing. And then we're going to go slightly longer on our our Flashabou here, and I've probably got 10 strands or so of this stuff. We'll do that same trick where we're pulling on a few of the ends from both sides, just getting that stuff a little off center so it'll appear more natural in there. So I've got everything laid out for my dubbing loop here. I'm now going to very carefully take that off the counter, and we will insert everything perpendicular to the dubbing loop there. Got a few fibers falling out, that's okay. We're going to quickly spin that up. And then I've got my dubbing brush here. We'll just kind of comb that out, get some of those fibers loosened up. Got a couple that took off on me here. I'm just going to pull those out so they don't get in the way. Alright. And then we're going to wrap this behind the bead. I'm going to kind of train everything rearwards. As I wrap that on there. And then once I've got that created, I'll just tie down the loop. And we'll get in there and cut that. For now, I'm just going to tie that down, and then we will whip finish here behind the bead. Got a little 3-turn whip finish in there. And then we can go ahead and cut that thread. Before I push that bead back, we're going to put just a little dab of Brush On Zap-A-Gap on there. Keep those thread wraps locked. And now I'm switching threads. I'm going to finish this fly with a smaller thread. I've got a 70 Denier fluorescent fire orange ultra thread on there now. So go ahead and push that bead all the way back into the material. And then we'll start our thread right in front of it here. Okay, now in front of this bead we are going to palmer a pink jumbo guinea feather. Just going to strip the fluffy stuff away from the base here. And then we're going to kind of train those fibers back with our thumb and forefinger. So you should end up with a feather that looks like this. Gives us a nice little handy spot to tie that feather in by the tip. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing that we did with the dubbing loop material with this feather and just really kind of train everything back before we start wrapping it. We'll get about 3 wraps or so with this thing. There we go. One of the things I like to do before I tie off this feather is strip away some of those fibers, so I'm just tying off mostly bare stem. There we go. One of the reasons I like to use the Guinea feather for this portion of the fly is that it's much stiffer than things like Schlappen and hen, and is going to support the Marabou that I put in front of it a little bit better than some other stuff would. So now I have a shrimp pink Speyquill Marabou feather. You can see I've already stripped away some of the fluffy stuff at the base, and I'm actually going to strip away one side of this feather here, so it'll look like so, and that's going to give me a sparse fly that moves and breathes a little bit better in the water. Just like we did with the Guinea, we're going to kind of train those fibers back away from the tip. There we go. All right, and we'll go ahead and wind this on. I'm going to get about 3 wraps with this one as well here. Of course, as with any winter steelhead fly, this is just kind of a fly design. You could tie this in any color you wanted to. Go. Okay, we've got that one on. We're going to add a little bit of flash. I'm going to do 2 strands doubled over of opalescent lateral scale. I love this stuff. I think I put it in just about everything I tie. But we'll trim those fairly long. And I'm going to run one down each side. I'll center tie that in the middle and then fold the end back. And we'll do the same on the far side of the hook. We're going to measure those. I don't mind if they're slightly longer than the body, but I've got some fibers that are a little longer than I need them to be, so we're just going to give that fly a little bit of a haircut. And the final thing that I'm going to apply, we're going to give this a collar of purple Schlappen. Nice fluffy feather. We'll strip away some of the fluff at the base. That just gives us a little bit better handle to work with. And then we're going to prep this feather just like we did with the Guinea, where we're training those fibers rearward, so that we can tie this in by the tip. There we go. Sweep those fibers back just like we did before. And just like with our Marabou and our Guinea feather. We're going to try to get about 3 turns out of this one. I think we'll even do 4 here and give this a good pronounced color. There we go. Make sure that's tied off, and then we'll go ahead and trim what's left of our stem. And we're just going to build up a nice, neat little head. Do a whip finish and we're done. You can, of course, apply a little bit of your favorite head cement to the head to finish that off there. But I like these flies. That tungsten bead serves 2 purposes. It's going to help kind of flare everything out, so you get a little bit more movement out of the marabou and the hackles in this fly. It's of course also going to give it a little bit of weight, so in swifter flows or situations where you need to get your fly down deep, you've got some nice built-in weight kind of push back on the fly there. So I'll tie a lot of flies in this style. Anyway, there you have it, the Leadbelly Spey. Thank you for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.